I'd like to get the session moving. And as you will have seen, we are recording this. And let me just do. So welcome everyone to our session on the hydrogen economy. This is our informational webinar. It's going to be a very informal session, and I will give a brief overview to start with, and then I'll introduce some of the instructors from the course as well, and then there'll be plenty of opportunity for your questions after that. So that's the overall structure we're going to be following. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I would ask you please to remain muted and keep your video off, partly just to avoid unnecessary noise on the sound side, of course, and also just to preserve bandwidth on the video. And if you do have questions, please put them in the chat, and we will address those later on, as I said, in our session. So our theme, as we've said, is the hydrogen economy. And this slide here is really just intended to put the whole concept of the program in perspective. The graphic that you see on the right of your screen is from the DOE's H2 at Scale program, and it provides a sort of overview of why hydrogen is significant. It's been widely expected, it's widely expected that in the ongoing energy transition, hydrogen is going to be a very important player to help us decarbonize the world. And as I say, this graphic gives you some idea of how and why this is likely to be the case. We see on the right-hand side the display of hydrogen, that hydrogen is interconnected with a lot of things, even today. It's very much interconnected with the energy systems of the world because hydrogen is largely made from hydrocarbons and in particular from natural gas. And so you'll see that from the arrows there that gas is feeding into the hydrogen production side. Hydrogen is also made from electricity. Today, that's a relatively small part of the overall picture, but it's an important part and it's a growing part. So there are those interconnections between hydrogen and the energy infrastructure. And then we talk a lot more about the uses of hydrogen as well. Hydrogen today is used largely in the industrial sector, especially in fertilizers. So we have ammonia production and urea that are very heavily related or dependent on hydrogen. And also within the oil refining sector, it's very heavily used. And those are really the main applications. But going forward, there are plenty of other things that it's likely to be used for, and already to some extent is being used for in hydrogen vehicles, for example, in heating, and again, more applications looking to develop in that front, and in power generation as well. Hydrogen can be made from electricity, but it can also be used to produce electricity, and it can be used for energy storage as part of that. So it has major applications potentially in the future for stationary power, even at grid scale. And as we've already mentioned, transportation and increasing industrial applications too, not just the existing ones, but many more that are likely to develop over the next decade or so. So hydrogen already is an important part of the energy infrastructure as well as the raw materials infrastructure of our existing economy. But that is becoming even more and more important as time goes on. And so that's really the backdrop to why we are running our hydrogen economy program. And this next iteration, the next cohort, starts next month, February the 16th. So what is the hydrogen economy program? Well, first of all, I actually want to start on the left-hand side of the screen here. The objective of the hydrogen economy program is to jumpstart hydrogen careers. I'm sure a lot of you who are on this webinar are already involved in industry, perhaps in the energy industry, and you're interested in finding out how you can pivot and become more involved in energy transition areas. And hydrogen is obviously one of those important areas. The whole reason for our hydrogen economy program is to help people make a jump start when they want to do that. It is a multidisciplinary program. I talked about a number of the different ways in which hydrogen can contribute to the energy transition in the previous slide. But that involves not just technology. Obviously, that's an important part to make those applications work. But there are also a lot of other aspects to it, from a business perspective, from a policy perspective, even from a legal perspective and a social perspective. And so within the hydrogen economy program, we try to look at all of those angles. Obviously, we can't do it in huge depth in the amount of time we've got, but we try to provide you with an introduction. We give an overview of the whole space. What's important in hydrogen in terms of applications, in terms of skills that are needed, in terms of perspectives on the whole field, depending on whether you are a technical person, a business person, a policymaker, and so on. It's also very interactive. I think what most past students have found particularly valuable is the opportunity to interact live with some real experts in the field. And I'll talk a little bit more about our experts in a minute. Of course, at this point, the program is online because of a number of factors, partly, of course, the ongoing pandemic, but also because a lot of our students are literally around the world. But we are planning on having some in-person or hybrid sessions as part of the program in this cycle. And that hopefully for those of you in the Houston area will be something that's useful to you. The faculty for our course consists of two different groups. A number of the people involved are leaders from industry, people who have already made a trail into the hydrogen sector in their careers. And I'm hoping one or two of those are going to be on the call and can talk about a little bit about their background and what they're bringing to the program. And we also have people from here within the University of Houston, people who are accomplished faculty, people who also have expertise, but can also bring a slightly different perspective to this whole hydrogen space. So how is the course structured? How is the program structured? And so at the top of the screen here, you will see the actual schedule. We start on February the 16th. We meet Mondays and Wednesdays in the evenings, 6 to 8:30 p.m. And I should say there that's Central Time, since we're working out of Houston. And we basically have then these 2 sessions per week. And there are 3 separate modules or badges that we run. The first one, which effectively runs for 3 weeks, 15 total contact hours on hydrogen production. And then the second one, hydrogen transportation, safety and use, which is another 3 weeks, 2 sessions per week, 15 contact hours. And then the final one, badge 3, and I'll come back to the term badge in a minute, is commercial opportunity for hydrogen. And this obviously addresses existing and growing opportunities in the hydrogen sector. And this includes a capstone project, which is an opportunity for you as the students to run with some of the ideas that are being presented in this program and develop your own concept for a future hydrogen project. At the bottom of the slide here, you can see the links that are related to this, the website and the application. So with that, I think I've pretty much said what I wanted to say about the program. And as I said, keep this very simple and informal. What I'd like to do now is to hand over to some of our other presenters or instructors to say a few words from your perspective. And I'm trying to see who is there. So let's see, I saw Nigel, you joined. Would you like to say a few words about your perspective on hydrogen, how you got into this field, and what you'll be talking about in the program? I see you're still muted, Nigel, are you there?
I'm here now, yes, sorry, I was just waiting, I think, to be unmuted by somebody that's, so thanks, yeah. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Nigel Genvy, I am a managing partner of New Energy Frontiers at Baker Hughes, where we invest in new technology areas in energy. regarding CCUS, hydrogen, energy storage, energy management systems, and geothermal as examples that really underpin, of course, the energy transition that we're all in. My background, I've been involved with hydrogen really since the late 2000s, and when I have been working in carbon capture, use and storage, because CCUS can be linked to other carbon-based feedstocks to convert them into hydrogen, and of course CO2 then is pre-combustion based decarbonisation, and that's mainly where I've been involved historically. Back in the 2000s, I worked for BP Hydrogen Energy, which was an actual business unit going around the world looking at hydrogen projects, taking carbon-based feedstocks and converting them into either energy directly or chemicals, and I've been involved indeed in a lot of blue hydrogen projects. But now I have a role which is technology, and looking at all of the variety of ways and the color palette, which is used to describe what the feedstock really is to produce hydrogen, and how hydrogen is produced, and what form of energy is put into the conversion process. And of course, that includes green hydrogen, that includes blue hydrogen, that includes turquoise hydrogen, yellow hydrogen, pink hydrogen, white hydrogen, lots of different colors. So it's a really exciting space, lots of ways to do it. And of course, hydrogen, the qualities of hydrogen is it produces clean burning energy for the energy transition. So very excited to be here. I joined the cadre of industry lecturers really to provide an insight into the ways hydrogen are used today in industry, and why, where and why, if you like. And then I look at what the strategies and policies are that underpin the new ways of using hydrogen in various sectors that are going on around the world. So great to be here today. Encourage everybody really to think about joining us as we work together and talk about hydrogen on the course. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nigel. Appreciate your input. I guess someone else I want to call on, Joe Powell. I saw you were on. Can you unmute yourself and talk a little bit about your background and what you'll be talking about in the program?
All righty. Well, I can unmute. I think I may need a little bit of help with the getting on video from whoever's. Here we are. So start my video. That'll work.
Usually that's good, yeah.
There we are. So there I am in person, Alan. So
good to see you.
Great to be here again for version 2 of the class.
Great.
I'm Joe Powell. I retired as Chief Scientist, Chemical Engineering for Shell about a year ago in a few days. And we taught the first version of this class last summer, which was quite a bit of fun for everyone involved. Again, I did everything energy transition for Shell, from the nature-based solutions to the hydrogen, to the circular economy, to carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Did a lot of systems modeling across that space to look at how it all fits together. My day job was process development, so I did new technology, R&D, and then commercialization. So bring that experience into the event, and also was the chair of the DOE's Hydrogen Technical Advisory Committee the last 2 years of that committee, ending in early 2021. And so had the benefit of writing the annual report on everything going on in the US in hydrogen, and also advising on the US roadmap for hydrogen development. Since so-called retiring, I've been working full-time and continuing process development.
Only full-time, did you say, Joe?
Yeah, so it's been a scale back to a sort of a normal job, but I'm involved in advising some project activities in other parts of the world, and would like to see more of that happening out of the US in terms of really launching some of these green and blue hydrogen opportunities. So I guess my role in the course is to bring in speakers as needed from my connection base. So we've got quite a number of external speakers from people you will be seeing in the news as movers and shakers in the hydrogen space, and then fill in with some of the technology lectures to find any gaps in the program, so you get the complete coverage from why to how do you make the hydrogen in all the different colors and ways, and then how do you distribute, transmit, and get it into the end users. And then finally, a section around what are the compelling uses and market opportunities for those end users. And then that includes a class project. So we ran some of those with the Stanford Energy group before I left Shell. And we did another version of that in the class last summer. And I think everyone involved really enjoyed doing the project, working collaboratively or independently, and then getting their Shark Tank time in front of the audience to say, here's my idea. And I guess I found that the excitement about the project was so great, we barely had enough time to give everyone a chance for all the speaking opportunity they wanted to share their idea. So that was a lot of fun and encouraging. So again, I think the course is geared to cover a number of different backgrounds, from the learner to the more senior technology advisor type. And so we cover all in between, have a lot of information to share, certainly adapted to all depending upon where your learning status is along the hydrogen journey. So that's my introduction, and I'd like to welcome those of you who would like to take the class, and certainly would be looking forward to working with all of those participants I see on the call today.
Great, thanks, Joe. And I have to say, Joe has really been the backbone for this program, and as you can tell, he's got a very wide and long experience in the sector. He really knows the industry. He really knows the hydrogen space. And Ram Sitharam, Ram, would you like to say a few words? I do have to introduce Ram to say that once upon a time in the distant past, he worked for me in another lifetime.
Yes, sir.
But despite that, we're still friends. So Ram.
Far from it, Alan. You launched my career, so thank you.
Off you go, Ram.
So I can speak from another unique perspective as well, in that I took the first offering of this course back in August, June, July, August. And I can speak for what a wonderful experience it was, and what a huge learning experience from learning from all the different instructors, bringing their particular expertise, just like Joe and Nigel that you heard. But this time, I'm also, Alan's invited me to present a module during this course. A bit of introduction for myself. I am a recent retiree from ExxonMobil, about 33 years in the upstream industry. After I departed working for Alan, I went straight to work for ExxonMobil and stayed there. And so all of it has been on the upstream side and the carbon-based energy side. So I joined UH Energy about a year ago to work on the carbon transition. And as Alan mentioned in his opening slides, hydrogen is a huge part of that, is going to be, if not already, a huge part of that energy transition to the low to zero carbon energy forms. It has been an exciting journey, learned a lot. And I'm also leading UH Energy's hydrogen efforts in terms of setting up some collaborative projects. Specifically, we have working on one called Project Showplace that's working on the green hydrogen side of things. and even more specifically, working on green hydrogen offshore. So what I'll talk about in the module that I'll present is how do we take all of this knowledge and tap into wind energy that's available offshore to create green hydrogen and supply either electricity or hydrogen to the large demand centers that we have along the Gulf Coast. So it'll be a slightly different but unique perspective with a focus on green hydrogen and a focus on offshore and bringing in the wind energy component as well. And I hope you all will find that useful. We're in the early stages, and it might give you a chance for potential to think about how you can collaborate and join the project as well, in addition to any learning experience that you have from the module. So that would be my role here. And again, I look forward to meeting you all during the session and helping you out in any way I can.
Thanks so much, Ron. So I see one other instructor on the call, but before I call on Chuck, anyone else, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please put them in the chat. So as soon as after this last short talk, Chuck, if you'd like to say a few words, then we'll deal with any questions.
So I've unmuted Alan and starting the video. There we go.
Great.
Thank you. Just a quick introduction. I'm currently the director of our Center for Carbon Management and Energy at the University of Houston. Prior to that, spent time as the Assistant Secretary of Energy at the U.S. Department of Energy, ran the Carbon Management Organization at Battelle prior to that, and prior to that for 32 years, ran businesses internationally for Praxair, an industrial gas company now part of Linde. Part of that running industrial gases was running the hydrogen business, which began in the early 90s, really here in the Houston Gulf Coast region, and internationally now is well over $1 billion a year business for just Praxair, and of course other industrial gas players involved in that marketplace as well. I think anything related to the technical aspects of what we're going to address in this class, what we do is to marry that with the commercial realities of it, the geographic responsibilities that any investor has in terms of risk and technology and feedstocks, and ultimately doing the techno-economics on any hydrogen investment or business development plan. So we'll be addressing much of that in the class, not only currently and how it's evolved, but ultimately how we see the future unraveling in front of us in terms of who the major players will be, why, what will be the growth markets for hydrogen and why, and what will the necessary economics be, and what will be the supporting policies and commercial strategies to support those investments. And then, of course, in terms of the projects that Joe and Alan have mentioned as well, every project has risk. Risk has cost, and we'll get into the evaluation of that in terms of the eye of the beholder, and that being the investor or the shareholder or anybody that's involved in terms of the project or the activity. So anyway, look forward to seeing whoever chooses to join the class. Welcome that, and hopefully we'll have a chance to not only do the lectures, but more importantly for all of you to understand that this is designed for interaction, for the Q&A, for the questioning of the lecture material. And we make a point to have time at the end of each of those modules for you to interact. Oftentimes we have very, very expressive students, sometimes not so much, but everyone's encouraged to participate to your heart's delight. And having a chance to tap into those industry expertise that you've heard from already here, big part of the reason why we've had real good success with this. So thank you, Alan.
Yeah, much appreciated, Chuck. That's great. And talking about asking questions, people are being very shy here. I don't see anything in the chat box, but if anyone does have a question that you'd like to speak out, as long as everyone doesn't do it simultaneously, we can take verbal questions too. So this is a one-time offer. If anyone just wants to unmute themselves, if you have a question, let's hear it. Otherwise, we get off a little bit early.
Hi, this is Marcela Bravo.
Yes, Marcela, great.
Could you speak about, I guess, how hydrogen projects are covered or explained from a planning, development, and operational perspective? Do you cover that as well during the different weeks?
So we certainly address various aspects of that. I'm trying to think who would be the best one on the call to talk to that. Most of it is really the sort of initial conceptualization. So we don't really get in depth into the sort of project management at a sort of nuts and bolts level. Anyone?
But in terms of project, but I think in terms of project management, that's absolutely true, Alan. In terms of envisioning a project, of course, it's important to understand what type of feedstock access there is, what type of infrastructure may be available or may be necessary for any inputs or outputs from the facility. Customers, anticipated cost thresholds, and anticipated requirements of the hydrogen delivery in terms of purities, pressures, reliability, things of that nature. We'll also get into the discussion around single point steam methane reformers or other type of individual process production, but also looking at the economics and the value creation from systems such as pipeline networks, hydrogen storage, things of that nature. And I think that's perhaps a bit of your question in terms of, how you would envision putting a project together to meet the needs of the expectations of your customer or your client.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Chuck.
Yes, thank you.
Hope that answered your question, Marcela. So it is, we do try to cover the whole space. And as Chuck said there, it's obviously in the time available, we can't do everything to fine detail, but we do try to cover the whole space.
Yeah, I think understanding the entire supply chain, as Chuck mentioned, is key to that. And so we can certainly give you that breadth of coverage, and then understanding the really market drivers behind that supply chain, which is Now, Alice, I know there's some other questions here in the chat box that maybe we can answer. And yes, the class can be done remotely, and so it is can be done completely remotely as need be, which we did last time. And as Alan mentioned, there may be face-to-face to consider somewhere along the way. And then in terms of the question from Ahmed about those with working knowledge in the field, I guess the feedback from the class is we were able to hit a lot of very detailed, up-to-date information in hydrogen by actively following the new developments and probing into some of the more interesting technology aspects that are just emerging. And so for me, it's sort of a current events and topics, and then you will hear from some of the key movers and shakers, be it from NEL or PNNL, in terms of the latest in electrolyzers and how they're going to deliver the $1 a kilogram within 1 decade, to plug power, which is a fascinating discussion of their commercialization and how they vision their plans. And so, yeah, I really think there's a lot of very up-to-date information, for those who are working at the top of the field. And then we also take time to make sure that that's distilled down so it's intelligible for those who are looking to get up to speed. So hopefully we cover both gambits.
Right. So just a quick note also, there was a question for a syllabus. What I just put in the chat is actually, this is a bit risky on my part, I have to admit, we have a pretty complete listing of the individual lectures. This is subject to change, but I did put it in the chat, and you should see there essentially subject by subject what we plan to cover. So that may be more information than you wanted, and it's a bit risky, like I say, because it is not finalized yet, but it should give you a pretty good idea of what we're going to be looking at.
You know, Alan, I did pick up a question from a gentleman, Jay Patel, that asked a question about electrification. And I think just generally, hydrogen is viewed as a very critical transition fuel because of its decarbonization and the ability to provide it as a fuel substitute, and whether that's in petrochemicals or electric power generation, et cetera, it certainly will impact transportation. But the projections for hydrogen demand can be as much as 10x on top of today's market of about 13 billion cubic feet a day. And so where are those markets? Who do they serve? And what markets do we anticipate growing? And I think that's a big part of the conversation that we'll have during our class in terms of how do we see that bend in the road and where is it going and what's going to drive it? And that will drive a lot of the questions around risks and the investment portfolio that we might see and the necessary technology, because of course, as we move forward, other things that haven't been in the mix before, such as carbon dioxide emissions, methane emissions, things of that nature, all part of the carbon life cycle. And so as we look at the future of a decarbonized hydrogen fuel, that'll also be part of what we'll discuss as well. And that's really important for everybody to get their arms around, as well as the alternatives of electrolyzers and other things of that nature, which on the surface appear to be carbon-free, but of course they're not. And so we'll get into that too and have an opportunity to delve into your questions and thoughts.
Just another one, thanks Chuck, sorry. Another thing that I saw, Ben, you were asking about, can class be made up if a conflict exists? And the answer is yes, we do record all the classes. And they're available to you. If you miss the actual live session, you can go that route, and then essentially you can catch up. That I guess builds on the other question that was asked before. Can you do this all remotely? And essentially it's the same thing. Did anyone?
Yeah, I'd agree with the electrification comments. I asked the question, why not just electrify everything and then work backwards to say, where do we need hydrogen? How does that fit in? In terms of some of the questions about economic models, we'll teach the H2A models and how to use the prolific information that's out there from the DOE on the web as a reference for your modeling activities. And go over some of that. And then in terms of the technical details, I guess I like to make sure that my slides are packed with references, and so that as you need more technical details, certainly it can be a nice library reference set to really do the deep dives into some of the more technical than that you'd have to cover in class.
Yeah, so just to pick up a little bit on what Joe was saying there, obviously we have a very wide range of people coming into this program. Some of you are coming in with an engineering background, some of you are coming in with a business background, a policy background. So we have to be a little bit careful how we manage the content of the lectures themselves. So we can't really teach, partial differential equations applied to hydrogen supply, to everyone. So the idea is that we do provide a lot of background information for those who want to take it up, but we have to try to have material that everyone in the class can understand in the actual lectures. So yeah, I don't want to scare people off and think this is going to be overly technical, but the technical stuff is there if you want to have it.
And Alan, any good situation like this provides the learner with what you would consider a current and useful back of the envelope.
Yes. Always
you
a good
all
place
have
to start.
your own envelopes, and to fill those up with the things that you'll want to be able to have kind of top of mind in terms of how you can quantify things and how you can think of things in terms of relative size and cost, et cetera. And if we've done a really good job your back of the envelope will be chock full of stuff you can use for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Great.
As far as the global market question, that's a key point because hydrogen is really a vector to be able to move around renewable and clean energy. And so certainly it's going to be quite a bit about the complete global market for hydrogen and the US included, but quite a bit of a global focus here.
Excellent. There was one question that I don't think we did answer, just scanning through these. So the question from Betty about CLE credit. Betty, can you unmute yourself? I'm not familiar with CLE. Which organization is that relating to?
Oh, that's the lawyers.
The lawyers, okay. So we have provided continuing education hours for engineering. I'm not aware of what the requirements are for the lawyers credits. So we have never done that for these classes, but if you can send me more information, I can see what would be required to do it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, background music, cool, okay. We seem to have had quite a quick fire Q&A there. That was great. Any other questions? I think the pace has slowed down here, but we're willing to stay for a little bit longer if people still have questions. Okay, I take silence to mean that everyone is content with what they have, so that's great. And we do look forward to seeing as many of you as possible join us on February the 16th. And all of a sudden, that seems incredibly close. And my thanks too to all of the others from our instructor team who were with us and shared in this. Appreciate everyone's input. And I never did introduce myself, did I? My name's Alan Rossiter, and you probably see my name all over a lot of the correspondence you're getting about this course, and I sort of organize it. And yeah, try my best to keep this crowd of instructors under control. But anyway, thank you again, and look forward to seeing as many of you as possible when we run the program. So I guess with that, we'll close it down. Thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Bye.